Welcome back to Free Media. I'm Robby Soave.
And I'm Amber Duke. Tucker Carlson is not willing to just move on from the Epstein files. During his remarks at a Turning Point USA conference over the weekend, Tucker slammed the Epstein cover-up and proclaimed his fervent belief that the notorious sexual predator was an intelligence asset for a foreign government. Watch this.
And I think the real answer is Jeffrey Epstein was working on behalf of intel services, probably not American. And we have every right to ask, on whose behalf was he working? How does a guy go from being a math teacher at the Dalton School in the late 70s with no college degree to having multiple airplanes, a private island, and the largest residential house in Manhattan? Where did all the money come from? And no one has ever gotten to the bottom of that because no one has ever tried. And moreover, it's extremely obvious to anyone who watches that this guy had direct connections to a foreign government. Now, no one's allowed to say that that foreign government is Israel because we have been somehow cowed into thinking that that's naughty. There is nothing wrong with saying that. There is nothing hateful about saying that. There's nothing anti-Semitic about saying that. There's nothing even anti-Israel about saying that. I've spent my entire life pretty much in Washington, where I knew and loved a number of people, including one very close person who worked at CIA. That has never prohibited me from saying, I think the CIA has done some horrible things, murdered a bunch of people, participated in the murder of a sitting U.S. president. It's got a whole trail of crimes. That doesn't make me a disloyal American. It doesn't make me anti-American in any sense. I was born here. My family's been here for hundreds of years. I love this country. That's why I live here. So criticizing the behavior of a government agency does not make you a hater. It makes you a free person.
I thought that was a pretty epic rant. I agree with a lot of it. That part at the end is textbook my thinking. Yeah, it doesn't mean you are non-patriotic or you hate the country or you hate its people to criticize its government. Obviously, this goes for America. This goes for Israel. I'm very critical of some of the things the Israeli government does, as is Tucker. Very critical of the level of support financially that they rely on from us and trying to direct our foreign policy. That is not against the people of Israel. It's certainly not against the Jewish people. That's a preposterous notion that many in mainstream media, but even some on the right have bought into, that if you're making criticisms of this means you're anti-Semitic. Tucker is accused of being anti-Semitic for these reasons. I think that's unfair and preposterous. Make an argument. Show me the evidence. You're saying you're making a claim of anti-Semitism. Where is the thing that was said that was anti-Semitic? Open to it. Just show it to me. And they never do.
No, they don't. It's a smear, obviously. And the former head of Mossad responded to this on Monday, claiming that, of course, Epstein never worked for Israeli intelligence. But in his remarks, similarly said it's vicious slander and they're coming after the Israelis. I mean, just the whole, broadly.
Presumably the Israelis would like to know as well, if you're an Israeli citizen, what if your government was
stepping away from
this?
the Epstein thing for a second, the conflating all criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism issue is pervasive in a lot of different political realms. I haven't seen that employed any differently in this particular case. There was some polling that came out from the Democracy Institute this week about people's feelings about the Epstein files. Now, it didn't ask them, what is this your top issue, right? Like, if you had to name a top issue, what would it be? Epstein files would probably rank pretty low for most normal Americans. But the people who have opinions on it have very strong opinions. The vast majority say that they do not believe that Epstein killed himself. They believe that the Trump administration is engaged in a cover-up, and they believe that all of the files should be released. This is like 70+% of Americans across party lines, both Democrats and Republicans. So to dismiss just the overwhelming sentiment of how people view this issue from the Trump administration and the DOJ, that's a huge risk for them. And it's also not in keeping with this massive promise that they've been making since the beginning that, one, they were going to release them, and two, that this is the most transparent administration in American history.
Yes, and you point out how much many in the MAGA base care about this. But also the administration purported to care about this, or people in it did. The labeling of the initial files release as a phase 1 was so telling for how they viewed the importance of this issue that they wanted to have a sequel. They're like planning an extended universe here of Epstein files releases without what? Without actually having the goods. And look, I'm somewhere in the middle on or like a 6 out of 10 on like everything about Epstein. I don't think it's totally unbelievable that he would have killed himself given the circumstances. I don't think there's some document or collection of documents that the government has that like gives here is this rich and famous person who did sex crimes with Epstein. Here is this political figure who did sex crimes with Epstein. Like that, it doesn't exist that neatly and clearly. And I also recognize that the main Epstein accuser, Virginia Giuffre, has recanted a false accusation she made against Alan Dershowitz, and then so that you can only take, that makes so much of that. So I don't want to endorse everything that has been stated about Epstein. I find the intelligence asset thing very hard to just dismiss out of hand, given the level of protection he received, the leniency of the sentence, the origin of the wealth being mysterious and strange from the beginning. He is a strange case, and strange cases make us go, well, was there more going on here? It is not. You're not a conspiracy theorist, or you're not an extremist, or even confused to wonder. Things about this don't add up. And we would like to know more. And they promised us more. And he recorded everything. What is he blackmailing people for? I mean, again, just tell us what it is. Just tell us what it is. And they've really got a mess on their hands the way they handled this.
I think one of the things that causes people to be so skeptical of the administration's new line that there was really no there is that if Epstein was trafficking all of these children for presumably hundreds of clients, I don't think anyone expects or anticipates that they would be able to catch every single one and prosecute them, and that they would have enough evidence to do so.
Sure.
But the fact that it's only Epstein and only Maxwell who have been prosecuted for this, and not a single one of the clients outside of the Dershowitz case, which obviously fell apart, nobody else, you couldn't find anybody else, not even a handful, that is what really, I think, strains people's willingness to believe.
Yeah, it's a big mess, and this one is gonna linger in the same way I think that the Kennedy assassination was was the boomer version of this.
And we just found out this week that the CIA lied about its contacts with Lee Harvey Oswald prior to the assassination. We knew from the previous releases that they were at least aware of him, but now the new documents show just how much they were really tracking his movements and political activity in the months leading up to.
Transparency is just helpful, even if there isn't all that much there. We've now learned in the ensuing decades, we learned a lot more about, Oswald was a communist sympathizer. I think he'd visited either Cuba or the Soviet Union.
Both, I believe.
One or the other, or maybe both.
Soviet Union first, and then Cuba.
Yeah, and he was a sympathizer with, so it wasn't ideological, it wasn't coordinated, we don't think, by the Soviet government, but it was ideologically motivated by opposition to the American side of the Cold War. There's a lot more we learned about it subsequently, but it just would have helped to be transparent about it all the way through. And like that, if they had had contact with him, they didn't want to admit, oops, we missed this crazy loner guy who we're kind of paying attention to who killed the president. In the same way, they always missed the school shooter, even though the government's been informed a million times.
Or there was a threat prior to the attempted assassination of Trump, and we're only finding out a year later that they never informed Trump's Secret Service team about it.
Yes, so even if it's not a grand conspiracy or cover-up, people in charge want to make it look like they didn't screw up so badly. They weren't negligent in their duties. And maybe that's what's going on with Epstein, or maybe it's they looked the other way one too many times because he was providing information. I don't know. I'm not trying to guess, but they promised to tell us more, and there's more we need to know. And I don't know how many times I could listen to Pam Bondi over and over again and say, oh yeah, that minute of missing footage, they have that every night. And then you saw it, but it actually had been edited by Adobe
Wired
something.
alleged that the metadata suggested it had been manipulated.
Oh boy, I think we'll still be discussing this maybe next week and maybe every single week for the rest of our lives. Thanks for watching Free Media Tonight. We'll be back first thing tomorrow to talk about Andrew Schultz. Stay with us.